Hi, and welcome to Mother's Quest, a podcast for moms like me ready to live our own truly epic life. I'm Julie Neal, a life and leadership coach, community builder, writer, and mom to two high-energy boys who challenge me to grow into my best self. I'll be right there. Where was I? In the months leading up to a big milestone birthday, I decided it was time to stop sidelining my dreams and become the hero of my own journey. I knew I didn't want to do it alone, so I created this podcast to learn from other moms further ahead on their quest, so their words of wisdom and lessons learned could help light the way for mine. I created this podcast for myself, but I hope you'll come along with me and find some treasures of your own. Hi, Mother's Quest community. I have a few things to tell you today before we get started. This episode number 12 marks an important milestone. It's the number of episodes I set out to complete in my first season. I didn't know what to expect when I started out on this podcasting path, but it has been all I hoped for and more. So much more, in fact, that I did decide to extend the first season another 6 episodes to take us through to the end of March. Next week's episode will be another solo cast and an opportunity for me to reflect on some of the ways in which these interviews with incredible mothers have enriched my life. And I'll give you a preview of what's ahead. So make sure to listen in on that episode next week for all the details. And if you'd be open to spreading the news of my extended season, click on the link in the show notes and sign up for my Thunderclap campaign. With your help, the day the extended season launches, there can be a thunderous announcement on social media to help reach more moms with these conversations. Another few announcements. I heard from so many of you that you loved last week's episode with Christina Kuzmic, the Truth Bomb Mom, and that you, like me, are up for her Positivity Challenge. I created the Live Your Epic Life planning and reflection sheets to help us record our weekly intentions using the EPIC framework and reflect at the end of each day on that one positive thing we want to focus on. You can get the free download at mothersquest.com, and the link will be in this week's show notes. Finally, this week's dedication is for my own mother, Fran Lieberman, in honor of her birthday. Here is my sister Karen with the dedication.
I'm proud to sponsor this episode of the Mother's Quest podcast with my sister Debbie in honor of our mother Fran on her birthday. Happy birthday, Mom. Mom, as the oldest of your 3 daughters, I can say that you raised us with undivided attention, unconditional love, stealth focus on our individuality, and encouragement to pursue our passions and become our best selves. What's so remarkable about you is that we never felt you had a favorite, and therefore we were never jealous of one another. In fact, all of our childhood, college, and adult friends confide that they envy our close relationship with you. You bring the same unconditional love and support to your 6 grandchildren, honoring each of them for the unique individuals that they are. And although you ultimately chose motherhood over your teaching career, you never stopped teaching us or our children love of family, art, culture, literacy, community action, and political awareness stoke the flame of your voracious appetite for life. So thank you, Mom, for providing us with a roadmap towards achieving our own epic lives and instilling in us the importance of our roles as mothers, sisters, daughters, and wives without relinquishing our own sense of self.
Thanks, Karen. One of the things that made our friends appreciate our relationship with our mom so much is she loved us unconditionally and allowed us to come and talk with her about anything without worrying about judgment or criticism. These are the qualities that my guest for episode number 12, Saadia Ahmed, talks about in how she approaches parenting her high school-age children. I'm honored to share this enlightening conversation with Saadia, who I reached out to after the recent executive order on immigration, to find out how I could become an ally to the Muslim community, something we talk about in the interview. Saadia and her husband live in Los Gatos, California with their 2 children. She's a talented financial advisor serving high-level women professionals and entrepreneurs, couples, and families. She's actively engaged in her local community, is a member of Watermark, and is passionate about issues and opportunities in the areas of education and empowerment of women. She's also a bridge builder, and she talks about how after 9/11, she became heavily involved in outreach for her community and proactively pursued interfaith dialogue as a way to find common ground with others. We talk about some of the stereotypes commonly held about Muslim women, how she stepped into and developed leadership among the women in her community, and our mutual desire to reach out beyond our bubble with curiosity to better understand people with different beliefs. Saadia and I have decided to become partners in this effort and plan to break bread together with other women to build understanding. This is the challenge we offer to you as well. I hope you leave this conversation as I did, inspired to learn more about the people around us and the shared values that we all hold dear, no matter how different we may seem. I'm Julie Neal, and this is Mother's Quest. Saadia, welcome to the Mother's Quest podcast. This is episode 12 and the first one that's closing the first 12 that I set out to do. I feel really honored to have this conversation with you and close this out in such a thoughtful way.
Thank you, Julie. I'm really honored to be with you today.
Before I ask you my first question, I just want to say how I came to be connected with you. A few weeks ago, after the executive order from President Trump related to traveling and immigration from many Muslim countries, I, like many people, felt concerned and worried about the Muslim community and how this was affecting people from the community. And I also admitted that I didn't have any close relationships and haven't fostered understanding or really become an ally in the way I'd like to. And so I reached out to a colleague of my husband's and decided I wanted to find a mother also on a quest from the Muslim community who's doing outreach work and trying to build understanding. And I was led to you, and I'm so grateful that we've begun a connection that I know will carry us forward beyond this interview.
Absolutely, Julie. I'm looking forward to that. Also, thank you so much for reaching out and for building these bridges of communication, of dialogue. I think that is what is really needed in these times, and I think can do wonders in removing misunderstandings and stereotypes and just getting to know each other as a person.
Thank you for saying that. I agree. And I'm so looking forward to this next 45 minutes to an hour that we're going to spend together building understanding. So the first question that I want to ask you will help me actually understand a little bit more about your life and what has shaped you. Tell me about your childhood and what role your mother has played in helping you become the person you are today.
So, Julie, I grew up in Pakistan. I was fourth in my family. So I'm the youngest in my family. We have four siblings. My dad used to work for Pakistan Air Force. So we used to have a lot of mobility in terms of where we lived because we would get stationed at different Air Force bases, and we moved a lot in my childhood. Being the youngest, I was my mom's favorite. So what I remember most about my childhood is being able to get away with a lot of stuff. And I remember my older siblings always complaining that, I had the least amount of discipline and I could get away with so much that they never could. And my mom was always my champion. So I remember my older siblings getting scolded if they were ever mean to me or did something. So it was a very special relationship. I knew that I could always count on her. She was my champion. I could get away with a lot.
What do you think it was that she saw in you that made her come to your aid?
I think it was more of the fact that I was the youngest, and my older three siblings are a year apart, so very close to each other. And then me and my older sister are 4 years apart. So I think because I came in a little later, that worked. And then I think it was just the fact that I was the youngest, so I was the most adored. And even my older siblings also pretty much, I was the favorite of most of them. So I had a good relationship with the oldest two, and then the third one, and we used to fight a lot. So, but it was we had a very involved childhood where we were always doing things together. And because we moved so much, we became pretty close as a family unit, because it was always, we were making new friends when we moved to new places. So we had a fairly strong connection amongst each other, and a very strong relation with our parents too.
And where were some of the places that you lived growing up?
So when I was very young. I think I was less than a year old, and from what I hear, I got extremely sick, where the doctors in Pakistan pretty much said they couldn't figure out what was wrong with me. And my dad had a posting in England at that time. He was a student at the Royal Air Force Institute. So he told my mom to sell the car, buy the tickets, and bring everybody. So I think I was the reason why the whole family moved to England for a year when I was a baby. And then we drove from London to Pakistan in 1971. So that was a historic journey where for my siblings. And then we moved a lot of bases within Pakistan. And then when I was 5, my dad had a posting in Abu Dhabi, which is United Arab Emirates. It's about 2 hours from Dubai. So we were there. I started my schooling there. We were there for 3 years. Then we went back to Pakistan. And then it was primarily within different bases in Pakistan that we moved to.
And how did you end up coming to the United States?
So in 1984, there was a law that passed against us. So I belong to the Ahmadiyya Muslim community. We are a community that believes in the Messiah that was prophesied by the Holy Prophet, may peace be upon him, 1,500 years ago. So in 1974, my community was declared non-Muslim in Pakistan. And in 1984, under a military dictator, there was an ordinance that was passed that pretty much stripped us of all our basic rights, our right to vote, our right to expression of our faith, the right to practice our faith. That followed a period of extreme persecution against my community. My dad got retired from the Air Force. That was an early retirement. Wasn't expected. He was only 52 years of age. He held a fairly important position in his department, and the orders for his retirement came from pretty high up. My brother faced a lot of persecution in his medical school. He had his belongings burnt twice. So there was this thing that my dad was very focused that he wanted his kids to not be in Pakistan because of security reasons. So my siblings, I think one after the other, they started, both my sisters got married in the US, and my brother, when he finished medical school, he moved to the US for his training. And then I moved to the US in 1997. At that time, my fiance, he moved in 1996, and then early 97, I moved, and we got married early 97. So we're celebrating our 20th anniversary this year.
Wow, congratulations.
Thank you.
My husband and I are about to celebrate our 20th anniversary in August as well.
Oh, wow.
So it's so interesting because it sounds like you really dealt with a lot of your own persecution and came to the United States looking for safety and freedom. Yes. In many ways mirroring what's happening with so many refugees today.
Absolutely. And I've written a couple of letters also in the newspapers in the last year or so, where so many things that have been happening have been kind of deja vu. It's almost uncanny, where I went through the same things, where I was labeled as an Ahmadi. And they had this word for us, which was a derogatory term, what they would call us Qadiani. I grew up with that. And honestly, I never imagined that there would be a time when I would be labeled again, or my children would be labeled. They are now a Muslim. So it is very, very, I would say, very surreal. That so many things that are happening. I almost feel like I've lived through it. Obviously, not as there is a huge difference. In Pakistan, we didn't have any way to respond. It was almost a gag order where if we defended ourselves, we could go to jail. So I think that is a big distinction, that in the US, we have the ability to basically answer, to basically be able to communicate our views. And then the other thing that I always say is, living in the Bay Area, there are just such wonderful people here. I noticed that first after 9/11, the way people reached out to us, that they wanted to find a connection with the Muslim community. I've had people who have, since the elections and even through the election cycle, have shown such a tremendous amount of support. I have clients that after every meeting, literally since the election, the first 4 weeks, almost every day somebody would say, is there something I can do? So that is so heartwarming, and that gives me so much hope that it's not the same. The things that are happening might be similar, but the response has not been the same.
Saadia, I really appreciated hearing about your upbringing and the ways in which what's happening in the world seem similar, but also different than things you experienced as a child. One of the things I admire is that you have really stepped in to become your own champion and to speak out. And that's one of the things that's special about being in America, the freedom that is afforded to you here. I see you as being the hero of your journey, and that is something I set out to do when I created Mother's Quest. I want to live what I call my epic life. And one of the things that helps me live my epic life is that there are some guideposts I've identified along the way, that in these years when I'm raising my children, if these guideposts are showing up intentionally in my life, I think I'm on the path to living the life I want. So I wanted to ask you about how these guideposts are showing up in your life. And EPIC is a mnemonic acronym. And the first letter in EPIC, E, stands for engaged, mindfully with your children. You mentioned that you have kids. Can you share a little bit about who your kids are and the ways in which you have engaged mindfully with them?
Sure. I think this is a topic that every mom loves to talk about. I can go on for hours. So I have two wonderful, wonderful children. My son is 17 and a half, almost turning 18 in May. And my daughter is 14 and a half. They're both high schoolers. I think for me, since they have been born, and especially once they became a little bit older and they were in elementary school and then middle school, high school, the way I have always gauged my effectiveness as a parent has been how much can I talk to them, how comfortable they are with sharing what they're going through and not having the feeling of being judged. As an immigrant, as a person of faith, our children they're really balancing between two very different cultures and two very different ways of being. I'm fairly conservative. I observe the whale. We don't drink. There is a lot of things that we don't do that the kids see happening outside. So for me, it's always been, how can I balance that in which they feel connected to their faith, to God, to their culture, but at the same time are able to communicate about things that they are not able to reconcile, or things that they don't feel that they are ready to be following. So as a person of faith, as a mother, bringing up their children in an environment that I didn't grow up with, my biggest my biggest goal has always been to have a good communication channel with my children where I appreciate and I can respect where they're coming from, and at the same time, kind of have the transference of values, but at the same time, for them to know that it is their choice to follow and adopt as much as it works for them. But in the background, I think since I've had my kids, I've become a lot more prayerful because very early on, I realized that being a mother, there are certain things that you control, but there is so much that is not within your control. As an immigrant parent, I have, because we have made such a huge change in our life of uprooting ourselves from one country to the other, our expectations for our children sometimes tend to be very high and sometimes unrealistic, which can put a lot of pressure on children. So balancing that where they do have a high standard of achievement, but at the same time, acknowledging them for the effort and not for the results. I think that is something that I've really learned over my children's lifetime of appreciating them as people, but not as an extension or as as having their success be defining my success from what they are up to. And I sometimes see a lot of parents get trapped in that, and that puts a lot of pressure on the kids. So my goal has always been, how comfortable are my kids in communicating with me, in telling me about what's going on in their life, and then also disagreeing with me when they feel that what I'm asking of them is not something that they feel comfortable doing.
So much of what you just shared, I relate to as well, and are things I aspire to in my relationship with my children. What have you found are some ways that have helped you keep those lines of communication open and help them believe that they can share what they really think, not just what you expect them to say?
I think, Julie, since they were fairly young, I have been trying to understand myself more. I think one of the gifts of motherhood has been getting to know myself better, because there's so many things that you see your children doing or saying that you see yourself in, and some of those things are like, please don't do it. I don't even like it when I do it. So it's really been for me really a way to get to know myself better on how I react to situations, on how I deal with situations, and then kind of understanding them better, and making sure that I'm able to and especially as they get older, they're both teenagers right now. So there are a lot of times when I have to take a step back and kind of tell myself that they're not kids anymore. They're actually young adults. So whatever they're saying is valid. And for me to come from a space where I actually listen to them. And I would say that listening is the best and the most effective tool that we can employ. Yeah. And also making sure that the kids know that no matter what they do or whatever they say, there is unconditional love and unconditional acceptance. One thing that my husband and we agreed upon when the kids were fairly young was that we would never take the same position with the kids together, or we would not gang up on them. So if there was something that the kids were doing that we didn't agree with, we would let one parent take a position on that. And the reason why we decided to do that was that at any given time, the child has another parent to go to. So that the other parent is not saying that I don't have that position, but they're like, if I'm scolding it, my husband will stay quiet. Or if he is talking to the kids and taking a position on something, then I would stay quiet. Or sometimes I would even leave the room so that the kids know that if they're not appeased, they can go to the other parent and vent. Because I would rather that they always feel that they have somebody else to go to. The other thing that my husband and I, we really have worked very intentionally around is making sure that the kids have a support structure. They have the family that they can go to, and then also our community. Both my kids have very strong connections within the community. They have mentors within the community, so that at any given time when we feel that something coming from us might not be as effective as coming from somebody else that they hold in high esteem, so that they always know that they're loved, they have a community, they have a family, and knowing that they don't have to agree with everybody at any given time, but just having that support structure, I feel that has been very, very helpful for my children.
So powerful. These are really great strategies. I think that my husband and I have done that sometimes with our kids, but not so intentionally, and it makes a lot of sense. I want to move into the P in EPIC, which stands for passionate and purposeful. And this guidepost is about making a difference beyond your family. Can you share some of the ways in which you feel like you're making a difference?
Yes. So I think I have, Julie, been very blessed of being in situations and positions that I have been able to live and my life in which I've really felt that I'm doing things purposefully. And I think my husband has been a huge supporter and partner in this effort where, and I try to do the same, where he has always supported me around things that I've felt passionate about and I have wanted to do, which sometimes have had an impact over whether there's food in the fridge or not, or whether we are having sandwiches, or whether we are having a salad or cereal, because I've been busy with things that I felt made a difference. I think I was, to give you a little bit of background about myself, I did my MBA in finance. I worked in Pakistan for 3 years. I was a management associate with Citibank. When I moved to the US, I worked with Bank of America as a financial relationship manager for about a year and a half. And then I quit. I took a break when I had my son. And this was around the time when 9/11 happened. That immediately put us in the forefront of trying to communicate about what we stand for, what does it mean to be a Muslim, and what does being a Muslim look like. Since 9/11, I started getting more involved in the outreach work that my community was doing. In 2005, I became the outreach director for the Ladies Auxiliary of the Ahmadiyya Muslim community, and it gave me an opportunity to proactively put together programs around interfaith dialogue, over getting people together from different faiths and finding similarities in our core value. Around this time in 2008, I was connected to a person who, as part of one of her leadership projects, was looking at establishing a relationship with Muslim women. We met for coffee, and I would say we haven't stopped talking since then. Her project was that when you break bread together, you cannot stereotype people. And her goal was to reach out to Muslim women and to get to know Muslim women on a more intimate level, so that she did not get affected by the news, but actually had somebody that she knew who was of Muslim faith. And we started a book club. She brought her friends. I brought my friends from my community. And we've been friends. We did a book club for 3 years. In 2010, in 2006, I went back to work. I started, I had been home for 7 years. My children were now getting where I really felt that I wanted to go back to being a professional again. So I started my own financial planning practice. And as I started looking at places where I could get personal development, I realized that the women of Pakistani community didn't have any platform in which they could come together and share strategies of improving professionally, of developing professionally, and having a professional network. So I actually started a women's leadership forum with an organization which is called Open, Organization for Pakistani Entrepreneurs. And I actually ran that conference for 4 years, and I was very, very happy with the success that we had around that conference. I still get people who say that they met that person at the Women's Leadership Forum. So that was my goal of getting women together to be empowered and to be able to network with like-minded individuals and actually have role models that they could look up in the professional realm. In 2012, I was elected as the president of the Ladies Auxiliary of my local chapter. And since then, I've been really working towards how to bring women of my community together, how to introduce programs and implement programs that helps them to develop spiritually and morally, and also have strong social connections, so that we really come together as a community in a more meaningful manner. Since the elections, we have started a women's dialogue group. Under the hashtag We Are With Each Other. So hashtag We Are With Each Other. We've had 2 events under that umbrella. The first was how do we move forward together in a post-election America, and then the last one, which was held last Saturday, was celebrating diversity through faith. And as I said before, just an amazing level of support that I have seen in people, in our friends, in our contacts. We have already, there are 3 other dialogues that have been scheduled for March and for April that we'll actually be hosting, not at our mosque, but other faith-based communities. They want to host the dialogues at their church, their places of worship, and then one church group, women's group, have asked us to come and basically, just breaking bread together, getting to know each other, for them to learn about Islam and Muslim women, and for us to learn about them. So I think this has really been my passion on how to build bridges of communication, of dialogue, how to find the things that we have similar amongst each other. I'm a woman of faith. I have seen that all religions have very similar core values, which is to love thy neighbor, to be kind to your fellow being, to be kind to your parents, to build connections with your family members. There are so many core values that we share, and so many people of faith who live peacefully and live lives which are not newsworthy, but make a difference in their families and in their communities. And my quest really has been that we explore those instead of our differences. There are obviously things, every 2 human beings have different opinions on different things, but then there is so much that brings us together, that can bring us together if we focus on those instead of the few things that we might think differently or have different opinions about.
I think the work you're doing is so important and very inspiring to me. I'm curious, as you've been doing this work and building bridges and common understanding, if you were to identify the maybe 2 things that you end up talking about the most, that people seem the most surprised about, or the stereotype that you feel you want to educate people about the most in terms of the Muslim community, what would those be?
I think one thing that people who don't know Muslim women, they get very surprised and very happy with how we actually are. So I'm trying to find a better way to say this, where that we're so normal, right? Because you have these stereotypes that Muslim women are oppressed, they don't have rights, they don't have a voice. But when you actually get to know a Muslim woman or a Muslim mother personally, you realize that they have a lot of empowerment because Islam as a religion gives Muslim women a lot of rights and a lot of, especially mothers, a huge amount of respect and empowerment in terms of the father being responsible for so many things to make sure that the mother has all the resources available to really build that nucleus in the house where the children and the whole family comes around. I think that's one of the things that I really enjoy when I'm doing my outreach work, for people to see us in up close, because I think that just by itself removes so many stereotypes. I think that has been the biggest learning, and I always enjoy that because I literally see minds changing and opinions shifting when they see our women's group and they see how we are with each other, how we are with our children, our families. I think that is the first thing. I think the second thing is always one thing that I have. I know that the work you do helps others, but what I have really gotten from the interfaith work and the outreach work that I've done is that I've met so many women of other faiths who are just so spiritual and so connected to God and to the work that they do, that it's just so wonderful to have friends across a wide spectrum of values and religions, but then again having such similarity of values. I think that has been my biggest takeaway, that there's so many things that we can come together on, and so many values that we share. Because as a Muslim, I believe that all religions are from God. Because as a Muslim, I have to believe in all the prophets that have come before Prophet Muhammad, may peace be upon him. So, just from a basic doctrinal point of view, if the source is the same, if the God is the same, the message cannot be too different. It's just that it came for different people at different times.
Yeah. You started to talk about how, as a Muslim woman, you really do have a lot of power. And I know that that's something you've been cultivating and that you continue to learn and grow and reflect. It connects to the I in EPIC, which stands for investing in yourself. What are some of the things that you have done to help you be so thoughtful and in this state of constant growth and reflection?
So, Julie, I think I would say that being a mother has been the biggest learning experience of my life, where, things have always been easy for me. By the grace of God, I've been a good student. I've been able to have whatever I got into, I was able to do well. And all of a sudden you become a mother and you realize that you're not that powerful anymore. You think that because every child, even a baby, has a personality of their own. All of a sudden, you're now being controlled by this, by a baby that you love fully. And I think being a mother has been one of the most humbling experiences of my life, where I have come to understand my shortcomings and my weaknesses in a way that I don't think anything else in my life was ever able to teach me. And I think that has propelled me to learn more about myself and to learn about how to be more effective as a mother, how to be more effective in all areas of my life, where putting somebody else before you is paramount. So I would say that being a mother has been what has really propelled me to invest in my own personal growth, in my own spiritual growth. The challenges that I faced with my children really, really got me closer to God, where I started understanding that, yes, there are things that I can do for my children, but then prayer makes a huge difference. Luck makes a huge difference. And God has been such a strong factor in my life where, as I said, that things have been easy. They've been easy because I always knew I had God on my side. I could pray and my prayers were answered. And that is something that I feel very strongly about. That's a gift that I want my children to have. And I know that they can only have it when I'm able to show that in a way that they find it, that they want to adopt it. So for me, for my kids to get close to God, I have to show God in a way that they find attractive and they find that it would be beneficial for them. So Julie, very early on, I realized that if my kids were going to have God in their life, they had to see a positive manifestation of that. And they could only see that through me. So that kind of made me more focused on my own spiritual growth and making sure that my example made it meaningful for my children to have a strong relationship with God.
One of the things I've been really focused on through Mother's Quest is exactly what you're talking about, that we can tell our children what we want them to think or value, but what we know from research and our own experience is that the most powerful thing is the example we set for them.
Yes. And it's very difficult.
It is. I wonder if you've heard of Dr. Shefali. She's an author. She wrote, her most recent book is called The Awakened Family. Have you ever heard of her?
I haven't.
I think that you would really like what she stands for. Many of the things you've talked about in the interview so far, about learning that you have to kind of let go of some control with your kids, but really listen and honor who they are and the unique people that they are, and also pay more attention to what is this dynamic with your child actually revealing about yourself, and then therefore how do you need to learn and grow yourself.
Yes.
These are all the points that she talks about. I think you would really value it. So I want to move to the C in EPIC, which is connected to a strong support network. And the idea there is so that you're, in this journey of motherhood and life, which has so many joys and so many challenges that you've been talking about, it really helps when we're not alone and when we're in community. Where have you found those connections? You started to talk about some of it. What has been most important for you to be connected to?
So I'll share a story. So I think my son was about 5 or 6 years old, and he had a disagreement with us, both of us, my husband and I. And he called my sister, and he said that, I hate my parents. Please come and pick me up. I don't want to live with them anymore, and I want to live with you now. And I remember that I was so upset with him because I felt like, oh my God, you've insulted me. It was all about me, right? That you think I'm not a good mother, and do you think that my sister is a good mother? I'm so much better than her, and all that racket that, all. And then I cooled down, and I think that was a big epiphany for me because firstly, what I told you about not ganging up on the children, that followed from that incident. The other thing that I realized was that I'm so lucky that my child is calling my sister. Who better person to guide my child than his aunt?
Right.
And since then, I have taken myself out of the equation as to how I look when my children are doing or saying something and what it means for them. And I think that was a turning point for me where I really came to appreciate that, my siblings and my kids' uncles and aunts, if they turn to them, that's the best possible scenario, that they have people that they can count on within their immediate circle. And then my husband and I, we have both been very focused on not just our own children, but all our children. Like I said, we have a very strong community. My husband was teaching the youth, the boys from 7 to 14 for a very long period of time. And he always put all the kids in equal footing. Even if, although my son was in that group, it was always, we've always had this perspective that it takes a community to raise a child. And if a child and any child in the community, if they're having issues, I am responsible for that because a community raises a child. So saying that my kid is so great and your kid is not, I think I let go of that very, very early on. And for me, now that I serve in the role that I serve, one of my biggest goals is that every child who walks into the mosque feels like this is their home, this is their community, they're loved, they are cherished, and they're valued. And I firmly believe that even one person can have a huge impact if they're intentional about it. If you're smiling, you will immediately see people around you that they will start smiling. If you hug somebody, you will see others start hugging. If you bring optimism and positivity in the environment, you will see that resonating. But a lot of times it has to be a conscious thing that you can do. You have to do. It has to be intentional, where if you want a certain atmosphere in your family or in your community and in your interactions, you have to bring that to the table. You cannot expect others to do something that you want to see happen. I have to put in twice the effort that I expect somebody else to do. And I have to make sure that others, as in the leadership roles that I have, to make sure that people do it not because I'm asking them to do it, because it brings out something that they cherish and they hold it closely, and it's precious to them. So it's really about, and I've seen that when you do that, when you start treating others' children like your own, and you're as committed to their success, then your children automatically get that. My kids, by the grace of God, have so many people in the community and in the family who are committed to them, who they can turn to, who they can talk to. And my husband and I, we always try that we are that. My nieces and nephews, I love them. I love all the children of my community because, they're our children. So they are our future. So we really have to invest in them and to make sure that they're ready to take, basically, we're ready to hand over, and they're ready to take over when we're not there.
Yeah. Sadly, we're starting to get to the end of our time together. I feel like I could talk to you for another hour, but I want to share a commitment that you and I have made to one another and invite others to make a similar commitment. And then we're going to close the episode the way that we always close, which is a chance for me to acknowledge you and share what some takeaways have been from this conversation, and for you to do the same. Would you give a little bit of background about the conversation you and I have had, and some of the desires you've had that I said, yes, me too, and we would partner with one another on?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Julie, for giving me an opportunity to share this. So at the last dialogue that we had on January 28th at our mosque, one thing that I realized was that it's wonderful to get women together and to talk about our common values. But at the same time, we were still really talking to people that share so many of our views. I've been really wanting to reach out to somebody who maybe doesn't know any Muslim, who really believes everything that they see on the TV, and they really believe that that's how Muslims are. And I would really like to reach out to somebody, not somebody maybe to start a conversation, and then maybe start this conversation amongst our groups as to, for them to learn what our points of view is, and for us to learn what their point of view is. Because I really feel that we're so multidimensional. We're not single issue people. We're not single dimensional. We're not just one thing that sometimes becomes such a stereotype. So I really feel I want to take the work that I've been doing to the next level. We're reaching out to people that I would be uncomfortable listening to and will take some effort on my part. Up till now, I feel the work that I've been doing has been very empowering and very comfortable. I'm reaching out to people who I share so much with. But I feel like we're not going to make a meaningful difference till we reach out to people that it's uncomfortable for us to talk to, who listen to different news media than we do, who support people that we don't always agree with. And I feel like because of my background of what I've been through in Pakistan, I feel like until and unless we're able to do that, we're not going to move forward as a country and as a larger community. And when I talked about this to you, it was so heartwarming that you felt the same way. And it's something that you want to partner with me on, that we start these dialogues of, yes, reaching out to people in our community and in our faith-based communities and getting us together and opening up those dialogues, but also taking it a step further and reaching out to communities that we might not have maybe otherwise reached out to.
Right. So you and I we're gonna team up and start with at least one connection with two other likely women who probably have different views than we do, and really come to those conversations with curiosity. So I'm really looking forward to doing that with you, and invite anybody else who has a common desire to find a partner and reach out to then two other people that may have some differing viewpoints and really come to that conversation with curiosity. And some of that came from, there was an article I wrote, and I'll include a link to it in the show notes, a morning where I was feeling really fearful. It was right after the weekend of the new executive order and so much protesting, and felt myself just falling into this abyss of fear and distrust. And rather than staying in that place, I chose to focus on our common goodness and move into action. And that's what led me to call Mohammed, that brought me to you. And it also led me to reach out to a friend of mine who has very different political beliefs and ask him with curiosity what he was thinking. And I also signed up for something that could be a great resource called Unbubble, and I'll also include links to that, where it consciously connects us through social media to people who are different from ourselves, so that the articles and the reflections and the things that we're seeing are not only those from like-minded people. So this is part of my quest right now. It's to reach out, even if it's sometimes uncomfortable, and really open myself for deeper understanding.
That's wonderful. Julie, the other thing also that we talked about was getting our women together, women from my mosque and your synagogue,
Yes.
For a dialogue, for them to get to know each other also.
And to do that through breaking bread.
Absolutely.
I'm looking forward to setting that up. Saadia, is there anything else that you want to invite people to do to learn more about the Muslim community and become a better ally?
Yes, thank you, Julie, for asking that. About 18 months ago, we started a campaign, which is True Islam and Extremism. And what our community did was to come up with 11 points that all Muslims agree upon that you need to believe in to be a true Muslim. And it includes accepting the Charter of Human Rights, equal rights for women. So there are 11 points. And if I would request your viewers and your listeners to go to trueislam.com and look at those 11 points, because that is what True Islam really stands for. If you can help us in promoting this campaign and really helping us to remove the stereotypes, which is prevalent around Muslims, and endorse those points, or at a very minimum, become a Muslim ally. So if you can go and check out trueislam.com and see if there is something in there that resonates with you.
Yeah, that looked like a fabulous resource, and I signed up for that, and we'll include a link to that in the show notes for other people to learn. So we're in our last few minutes, and it's time for us to just acknowledge what takeaways that we have. I want to say that there's this common theme through everything you shared, how you show up with your children and the work that you're doing around building bridges, really valuing open communication and dialogue, and having humility, letting go of judgment and worrying too much about what other people think, and really coming to your children and others with this beautiful openness. Thank you for sharing all of that with me.
Thank you so much, Julie, for giving me an opportunity to be in conversation with you. And I really want to acknowledge you for reaching out and enhancing your understanding about something that is so much in the media and from my perspective is so misunderstood. I really appreciate you and people like you who have reached out to me and my community in such large numbers and supporting us and being with us and really being a partner in making sure that our people prosper, that we prosper, and that we have an open communication channel. And Julie, really, it's people like you who will make that difference, who will bring those walls down. So I would just say, keep doing the work that you're doing. I really, really appreciate it. And I'm very grateful to you for giving me an opportunity to share and to be in conversation with you today.
Thank you. Well, I know that this is just the first of many future connections between the two of us. I'm grateful to know you now.
Same
Have a
here.
good rest of your day.
Thank you so much, and all the best in your quest, Julie.
Thank you so much for coming along with me on this episode of the Mother's Quest podcast. I hope this conversation sparked something that will help you live your epic life. If you'd like to get show notes and learn more about how to join the Mother's Quest community, head over to mothersquest.com. And while you're there, I would love it if you would follow the prompts to subscribe, leave a review on iTunes, and help us spread the word. I want to end with some words to light the way on your quest. Seize the day, love your people, honor your gifts. Until next time.